Well, good morning. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, and we want to welcome you this morning to Talk About It Tuesday, where we have plenty to talk about. I know that it's been a while, but I've been looking forward to getting back on here and talking to you guys. Thank you for all the questions that you submitted. There's so much that I have that I want to make sure that we answer on today. So, without further ado, it's Talk About It Tuesday. Let's talk about it. So, the first question that we have that came in from Matthew. The question is, what are the salary limits when going into a GS position from contractor? Well, Matthew, first I want to thank you for submitting that question, but I need to let you know that it depends on various things. There are 10 steps to the GS pay scale, and for most positions, HR may be limited to setting your pay at the step one of the pay scale when you first come in. But it depends on the needs of the agency or that facility, because there are times when critical skills or needs may factor into the step that they can bring you into. Sometimes they can bring you in at a higher step on the pay scale, depending on what the needs of the agency is or the needs of the facility. But that's not always the standard. The standard is usually to bring the person in at the first step of the pay scale. So I hope that that answers your question, Matthew. We also had a question that came in today from Brandon. And Brandon, I want to thank you in advance for your question because you asked, does the VA offer job shadowing? And though there are some federal agencies that have job shadowing programs, the VA does not have a national program where we have job shadowing. There are some facilities that have job shadowing or a mentor program at that particular facility, but it's for the internal employees. And that's based on facility participation only. That's not a standard in all VA facilities. But to answer your question about VA nationally, we do not have a job shadowing program. Some of the questions that you guys sent in this time were really, really tough. But here we go. We had a question that came in from Alexa. And Alexa says, how long should one expect to hear back from the date that they were referred from the hiring manager to get an interview? She says she's previously reached out to the recruiter, but they told her that they're still waiting on selections. She states that this was about a month ago and wants to know if we have any suggestions on what she can do to get this ball rolling for this position and for future positions. Well, first, Alexa, I want to apologize that the time frame has been somewhat lengthy for you, for someone to get back with you. The VA continues to work to try to reduce the time that it takes for us to hire people in and provide timely updates to applicants. But we have a 80-day hiring measure for certain positions and 120 days for like clinical positions that we're working to try to get people in. So you may have been waiting 1 month to right now, you said you're right at 2 months, but I'm sure that you've received at least the email that said that your application had been received, and you've received the notification that your application has been reviewed. So it may be a little bit of time before the hiring official is able to review the applications themselves and set interviews. So hopefully within 80 days, you should hear something letting you know whether you were selected for a position after the interview or if someone else was selected for the position. And I hope that that answers your question, Alexa. Lydia sent in the question and she says, when a position is open for public and an employee with no prior experience in the government field, how likely are they to be considered? Well, thank you for sending in your question, Lydia. And I need to let you know that when a job is open to the public, it's mostly open to the public to attract the widest applicant pool and talent. It's not always necessary for you to have government experience. However, your experience must relate to the position which you are applying to. My advice would be to read carefully the description that's in the vacancy announcement. Ensure that your resume is detailed and it outlines what you do and the time frame that you performed those duties. If there are other requirements such as education or certification, ensure that you meet those requirements as well. But lastly, I would say to increase your chances for consideration, make sure that you submit the documents that the vacancy announcement asks for. What I do when I apply for a job, I take that vacancy announcement and there's an area that says requirements. I print off that job announcement and I use that section as my checklist to make sure that I've uploaded everything that they've asked for. Then that way I know that at least I've done my part but by submitting what they've asked for. And I hope that answers your question, Lydia. Candace sent in a question and she says that she's a recent graduate with a BSM and she also has 6 months left for her MBA. What would be a good role for her? Well, first of all, Candace, I want to say congratulations on your recent accomplishments and your impending achievement in completing your MBA. There are so many doors that you open by completing your master's degree, and that accomplishment alone opens you up to various fields. To say what you could apply to, I would say maybe a management analyst, a program manager, administrative officer, or maybe even human resources like me. Who knows? But it really depends on what you feel your passion is. So I would say take the time to research what some of these positions entail and then follow your gut to find your passion. I hope that answers your question, Candace. Ashley sent in a question and she says, when applying, how do you know which GS level to select? Thank you for the question, Ashley, because I'm sure there are others that have this question. I've even had friends that have called me and said, well, Kendra, I'm applying for a government job, but I don't know what grade level to select. It has GS7, it has GS9, GS11. How do I know? So the answer I have is when you're looking at grade levels, positions may have various grades assigned to them. And the grade levels are determined by experience, and some are determined by your education. Others are determined by a combination of your experience as well as your education. You may qualify 2 grade levels, for example. You may qualify at the GS7 based on your experience, but you may qualify for a higher grade based on your education. And at that point, it's up to you to determine what is the lowest grade level or the lowest salary that you will be comfortable with going into a position. Now, I must say that I tell people all the time, don't chase the money. The money will come. Go in at the level that you feel that you would be most comfortable in, because what we don't want to do is get you in above and you be in this job and you're working above your head. We want you to get in. We want you, if you have to start at the GS7 and go to the 9, then to the 11, go in at the 7. That way you'll learn the job from the ground up. The money will come. Just know that it's up to you to determine what you're most comfortable with when you see that. Look at the grade, look at the experience that's required by the grade, and then also look at what the job entails. What is it that the job is going to require you to do at the different grade levels? Because the grade levels, the experience at the grade levels does differ. Okay? Ashley, I hope I answered your question. We have Danielle, who is in Atlanta, and she sends in, she says, I have an MSW. I'm residing in Atlanta, and I would love to work for the VA. Any advice to get my foot in the door? Well, Danielle, first of all, I want to thank you for your interest in VA positions. Social workers are very important to the successful care plan of our veterans. The only advice that I can give is to make sure that you have a good resume. Your experience that you put on the resume should be relevant to the position to which you are applying for. If you are in a not in a paid job, understand that you can volunteer, and volunteer experience is still relevant experience that can be credited for applying to a job. Okay. So if you're not on a paid job, volunteer experience is still experience. Okay. The only thing that I would say is that always be able to document the experience by having a supervisor or a manager that you've worked with, who you can use as a reference. And don't get discouraged when you don't land that first position. I've told you all plenty of times on Talk About It Tuesday, I submitted 80 applications to the VA before I got my first call. That's correct. 80 applications, not 80 applications before I got my first call for a job. And when I got that job, I was super excited. Or I got the call, I was super excited, and I landed that job. I sold myself in that interview. So, Danielle, that would be the thing that I would say. To get your foot in the door, make sure you have a good interview and keep applying until you get the job that you're looking for. Okay. I have a question from Jesus. He says, hello from LA area. Maybe that's Los Angeles. Maybe it's Lower Alabama. Could be Louisiana. I'm not sure. But Jesus says that he recently applied for a VSR position opening on USA Jobs. He received an invitation to the hiring fair, and after applying to the previous posting, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it to the hiring fair. Are there any tips or advice that I could give to possibly give him a better chance of moving forward? Thanks in advance. Well, thank you, Jesus, for your question. And I'm really sorry to hear that you weren't able to make it to the hiring fair to attend in person. But it appears to me that you did everything that you were supposed to do in order for you to get the invitation. So I don't know what more I could add or offer as advice. I don't know why you weren't able to attend. Things happen, life happens. But the only thing that I would say is don't let that stop you. I would say continue to apply. If you got one invitation, I'm sure you'll get another invitation. Just continue to apply. Just because that didn't work that particular time doesn't mean something won't shake loose for you in the future. So go ahead, apply again, and hopefully you'll be able to make it to an in-person interview and land that job with the VBA as a VSR. Nicole says that she wants to know if there are social work positions available that she could go into without a license. Well, what I would say, Nicole, is number one, thank you for your question. And some of the possible positions that I looked into for you, maybe a social service assistant. In social work services, we do have social service assistants that help the social workers that are able to identify various resources for the candidates and are able to talk to them and give them advice on where to go and get resources, not necessarily working as the social worker, but as a social services assistant. That would be the only position that comes to my mind right now that I know that you could go into without a license. Okay. We had some general questions that came in, and I'm going to try to address those and hopefully give you the answers that you need that will help you to move a little further. Someone asked, are there any differences or steps that should be taken if you're applying as a former VA employee looking to return? Well, first off, whoever sent that in, thank you for your question. And you would come in as a reinstatement eligible employee. The only thing is that you would just have to apply like everyone else. Make sure that you submit your SF50 that shows that you're reinstatement eligible. So when you're applying to the job, they're going to ask you for your SF50. Make sure you include that SF50 as a part of your package. That would be your last SF50 to show that you are eligible for returning into the VA or returning into the government. That would be the only thing that would be different when you're trying to come back. At that point in time, the HR specialist, if you're selected, will work with you on the other things that come with it. But just to apply, all you have to do is make sure you submit that last SF50. The next question says, what programs are available for disabled veterans? I'm not sure exactly what kind of programs you're asking about, but what I will say is that if you're looking to get into VA and you are a disabled veteran, you can apply and you can submit your paperwork to show that you're a disabled veteran, 30% or more, 10% compensable. Those things help you to move ahead as a disabled veteran, and disabled veterans are viewed in certain positions ahead of others who apply. But that's only in certain positions. Otherwise, I would say you could look into disabled veteran programs with the VBA. There may be something there that they can help you with to help you get started on your search for a position. Depending on your level of disability, the VBA has programs that they help veterans to try to get into jobs. So I hope that I answered your question and that you'll be able to find what it is that you need from there. This was a really good question that came in. It says the Department of Veterans Affairs offers relocation incentive for highly qualified candidates. I looked at OPM guidelines for this incentive, and it states up to 25% of the base pay added on to the GS salary. Is the 25% a guideline, or does this percentage of incentive pay differ by VA locations? This question was sent to us by Mark. Now, thanks for your question, Mark. I will say that 25% is the max incentive that can be paid according to the regulation, what you read. So this is what you need to understand. It doesn't mean that every person that gets an incentive will get 25%. They will get up to 25% based on the guidance that you read. And that percentage also will require a certain amount of time for that person to work. So there are different requirements for the percentage that you receive. It could be a 1-year service agreement, a 2-year service agreement, up to a 4-year service agreement. But it all depends on the facility. It depends on the amount that they're giving you. And it also depends on the need of the facility when it comes to caring for our veterans. So I hope that answered your question, Mark. Secondly, let's see, this question came in from Lorraine. And she says, as a recruiter for the VA, what are you looking for in applicants who are about to graduate? Thank you in advance for sharing your knowledge. Well, thank you, Lorraine, for your question, because I know there are some graduates who are out there who are looking to get into VA as well as other government positions. And as a recruiter, what we look for is, number one, the qualification standards may state that you need to have your education from an accredited school. So we're looking at that. Depending on what position, we may have to look at the GPA. We may have to look at the field that you're looking to go into. You may have a degree in one area, but the job requires that you just have a degree. It doesn't have to be specific to the particular job. But for instance, if you're going into accounting, we have to look to see if you have a certain amount of accounting courses, a certain amount of accounting credits that we have to apply and make sure that you qualify based on those number of credits. So we're looking to see your education. We're also looking to see if you have outside experience. What I stated earlier, you may not have paid experience, but you may have volunteered. You may have volunteered and been a mentor at the college that you're at. You might have been a tutor. You might have volunteered even at local schools or even nursing homes, depending on what job field you're going into. We look at what you put there. What we're looking for is, number one, we're looking at your education. We're looking at the experience that you have. We also want to make sure, and I keep trying to drive this home to everybody, the format of your resume. Make sure your resume looks good. Make sure it's crisp, clean. Make sure you're giving details about what you did in the job, because everyone that reads a resume or is reviewing a resume may not know the duties of a substitute teacher, may not know the duties of an accounting assistant. These things would have to be spelled out by the individual, letting us know what you actually did on the job. So that answers the question that you have. And I'm looking at time. We're coming up on time right now. But if there are any questions that we did not get to answer this time, we want to make sure that you send us questions. And if you send us the questions, we'll go ahead and we will answer those questions. We'll get an answer back to you. I hope that you have enjoyed today's session of Talk About It Tuesday. I hope I've given you something that you can go on and move forward in your search and trying to get into the VA as well and to get into other government jobs. I would love to hear you guys give us feedback and let us know what it is that you want us to talk about. Send it to us in the LinkedIn, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. Again, thank you for joining me today for Talk About It Tuesday. Have a great week.